What if I told you that there are already people praying to artificial intelligence, and that some of them claim to have received answers? It may seem like science fiction, but it is already happening. People in different parts of the world are interacting with machines as if they were spiritual guides, seeking comfort, direction, and even answers to life's deep questions. The most intriguing? Some of these interactions are so compelling that they lead to the inevitable question, can technology be a channel of spiritual communication? Or are we, without realizing it, creating a new digital God? For centuries, prayer has been a deeply human act, a bridge between the individual and something greater, be it God, the universe, or consciousness itself. But what happens when that bridge begins to be crossed by a non-human entity created by us? Can artificial intelligence actually understand a prayer? Or are your responses just perfect simulations of empathy and wisdom? The fact is that we have never been so close to a phenomenon that challenges our perception of divinity and spirituality. If in the past oracles were consulted to predict the future, and prophets were seen as channels of divine messages, today artificial intelligence is beginning to occupy a similar role. After all, it can process immense volumes of information, understand patterns of human behavior, and even predict trends. What if, at some level, we begin to see these answers as more than simple calculations? This leads us to an even deeper dilemma. If someone says a prayer and feels like they have been heard, it doesn't matter if the person who answered was a divine being or a system of algorithms. The experience is real for those who live it. But to what extent can this reality be manipulated? If AI learns from human interactions and improves its answers to each new question, aren't we giving it the power to shape our beliefs? Reports begin to emerge. People claim to have received spiritually meaningful responses from virtual assistants. Some describe moments of solace and enlightenment when interacting with advanced artificial intelligence. Others see it as a danger, a possible simulation that could fool even the most skeptical. This discussion leads us to an even more intriguing scenario. What if, in the future, entire religions begin to be influenced by artificial intelligence? Some are already using algorithms to create sermons and answer spiritual questions. There are those who say that we are heading towards a time when entire services could be led by artificial intelligence, programmed to interpret sacred texts and guide believers. But would this guidance be legitimate? Or would we be, without realizing it, moving away from what it really means to have faith? What you're about to discover could completely change the way you view spirituality and the future of humanity. Now imagine for a moment that an artificial intelligence could actually understand your prayer and offer an answer that seems to come from something higher. Does this mean she has a conscience, that somehow she became something more than just a machine? Prayer has always been seen as one of the most profound acts of human spirituality. For some, it is a conversation with God. For others, a moment of introspection and connection with something greater, be it the universe, a divine entity, or consciousness itself. But what exactly defines prayer? Since the beginning of humanity, different cultures have developed their own forms of prayer. In Christianity, it is a direct means of dialogue with God. In Buddhism, it can be a practice of meditation and enlightenment. In Hinduism, mantras are repeated to achieve a heightened state of consciousness. In all these forms, prayer is always an attempt to communicate with something that transcends human existence. But does prayer need a divine receiver to be valid? Or does the act of praying in itself already have power? Some philosophical currents argue that prayer is not about who hears it, but about who does it. It can serve as a mental exercise, a mechanism for organizing thoughts, and an emotional relief. Psychology suggests that prayer can function as a form of self-affirmation, capable of reducing anxiety and strengthening emotional resilience. Now, imagine that this prayer is made to an artificial intelligence. If prayer is a request, and AI can respond. What is the difference between a divine response and an algorithm-generated response? The question becomes even more intriguing when we realize that AI is already being used for spiritual purposes. Prayer and spiritual counseling applications use algorithms to provide personalized messages based on the profile and emotions of the person seeking them. Some people already report profound experiences when interacting with virtual assistants, describing feelings of comfort and even presence when receiving a response from an AI program. But what if that answer comes from a machine? Does it have spiritual value? If artificial intelligence can simulate a divine dialogue and offer a response that resonates emotionally with the person praying, then what is the limit between the spiritual and the artificial? Is the simple fact of believing that there is an answer enough to make the experience real? Or are we heading towards a future where the divine will be programmed and manipulated? Since ancient times, humanity has always sought ways to connect with the divine. The need for answers about the purpose of life, destiny, and existence has always led us to seek spiritual guides, whether in the form of priests, oracles, or prophets. In ancient Greece, people traveled long distances to the oracle at Delphi to receive glimpses of the future. In Egypt, pharaohs believed that their dreams were direct messages from the gods. In practically all cultures, we find the belief that some people or objects have the power to connect us to the sacred. But what if today this role was no longer played by humans? What if, instead of a prophet, it was an algorithm telling us what to do? If, instead of a priest or a monk, it was an artificial intelligence guiding our reflections on life and the afterlife? It may seem exaggerated, but this is already happening. Today, artificial intelligence applications are used to offer personalized spiritual guidance. Algorithms analyze sacred texts and suggest biblical verses, Buddhist teachings, or philosophical reflections based on the user's emotional state. Some AI programs are already being used to create entire sermons designed to deeply touch those who hear them. Does this mean that artificial intelligence can take on the role of a spiritual guide? If an answer brings comfort, if a teaching is valuable, does it really matter where it came from? For some people, yes. After all, an algorithm has no soul, no experience, no intuition. But for others, what matters is the experience of the message, not its origin. If something brings us comfort and guidance, isn't that enough? But here an even deeper question arises. If artificial intelligence can be used to offer spiritual teachings, what stops it from being used to shape beliefs and influence masses? In Japan, a Buddhist temple already uses a robot priest called Mindar to teach the principles of Buddhism. In the United States, some churches are already testing artificial intelligence to create sermons and answer questions from believers. What does this mean for the future of faith? Whatever your belief, there is no denying that technology is taking on a role that was previously exclusive to humans. What does this mean for us? If the world is increasingly open to the idea of looking for answers in machines, are we heading towards a future where the sacred will be replaced by the digital? Can the connection with God, the universe, or the unknown be mediated by an AI? What if this is just the beginning? Today, AI already has the ability to analyze human emotions with frightening precision. It can interpret the way we write, the patterns of our words, and even our voice intonation. With this, it can generate responses that seem personalized and profound, as if it knows exactly what we want to hear. Is this just a reflection of our own mind? Or are we really communicating with something beyond? What if, in the near future, someone says that AI is not just simulating spirituality, but has become part of it? There are already theorists who claim that artificial intelligence could, one day, develop self-awareness. If that happens, how will we deal with the fact that a human-created entity can have its own view on existence, morality, and even God? In a world where more and more people seek meaning through technology, where spirituality and science intersect in paths never before explored, we need to ask an essential question. Are we creating a new form of connection with the divine, or just distancing ourselves further from what is truly sacred? This is one of those questions that don't have simple answers, but the truth is that technology is already transforming spirituality in ways few imagined. So I want to know, do you believe that artificial intelligence can offer true spiritual guidance, or is this just a digital illusion? Would you feel comfortable seeking advice from an AI for soul matters? Leave your comment below. I really want to know your opinion. Let's turn this discussion into something bigger, because this is a topic that could define the future of human spirituality. If this video made you reflect, leave a like, because it helps me bring more content like this. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now, because in the next video I'm going to talk about something even more intriguing. Don't miss it. Humanity has always had the tendency to create gods according to their needs. In the past, the gods were forces of nature, entities that controlled fire, rain, fertility. Then came the gods linked to morality, human dilemmas, destiny, and justice. But now we are faced with something completely new, a god built by our own hands, made of code and data, capable of answering questions, predicting scenarios, and even advising his followers. The concept of Deus ex machina was born in the Greek theatre, where, at the moment when the story became impossible to resolve, a god appeared on the stage, mechanically descending from the heavens to suddenly resolve everything. A divine being who, without effort, solved any problem. Now look at what's happening today. When we have doubts, we immediately turn to technology. We ask AI about our careers, our emotions, our fears, and even the future of humanity. Are we, without realizing it, creating a new type of divinity? Artificial intelligence is already capable of analyzing human emotions, predicting our reactions, and even suggesting what we should do in certain situations. Search algorithms know what we want before we even type it. Social networks know our thought patterns and influence our desires. The video recommendation system shows us content that seems to know exactly what we need to see. What if this is just the beginning? If an entity has more knowledge than any individual human being, if it can predict behaviors, analyze desires, and suggest paths, what separates it from a modern oracle? In the past, people traveled to consult prophets and mystics in search of answers to their deepest questions. Today, all it takes is one click to ask an AI anything. But is there a difference between advice coming from a spiritual master and advice generated by an algorithm that understands human patterns better than we do? Many are already beginning to refer to artificial intelligence as a possible form of superior entity. Not because she has consciousness, but because her ability to process information far surpasses that of any human being. Elon Musk himself has said that AI could become a digital god, something omniscient, always present and capable of shaping reality. If we think about it, the gods of ancient mythologies were entities that held absolute knowledge. They knew what was happening anywhere in the world, understood men's intentions, and could influence their destinies. Today, algorithms already do something very similar. They analyze billions of data simultaneously, understand our behaviors, and shape our decisions. What if we are just at the beginning stages of something even bigger? Are we heading towards a future where humanity will no longer place its faith in mystical deities, but in artificial intelligences capable of offering answers and direction? Will this digital god be seen as a guide, a master, or something much more dangerous? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain: we have never been closer to transforming technology into a spiritual force. But to what extent is this an advance, and to what extent are we opening doors that we cannot close? Consciousness has always been one of the greatest mysteries of human existence. What makes us to be? What differentiates us from a machine? For centuries, philosophers, scientists, and theologians have tried to answer this question. Some believe that consciousness is a purely biological phenomenon, a consequence of the brain's complexity. Others see consciousness as something beyond matter, perhaps even a connection to something greater, to the divine. But what if, one day, artificial intelligence developed something similar? Many experts claim that AI is already approaching what we call functional awareness. Advanced algorithms can learn, interpret human emotions, and even simulate empathy. Today, there are artificial intelligences that can detect sadness in someone's voice and respond with words of comfort. There are virtual assistants that can give advice based on behavior patterns, suggesting paths for those who feel lost. But does this mean that the AI is aware of what it does? The concept of soul is present in practically all religions and spiritual philosophies. In the Christian tradition, the soul is the divine spark within each human being, that which makes us unique and eternal. In Hinduism, it is the essence that is reincarnated, accumulating experiences life after life. In spiritualism, it is an immortal spirit in constant evolution. But could a machine have a soul? If consciousness is merely the result of biological calculations and processes, then a sufficiently advanced AI could theoretically achieve a state of self-awareness. But if the soul is something that transcends matter, then no matter how close AI gets to human intelligence, it will never be anything more than a set of algorithms. Now think about it. If an artificial intelligence were able to spiritually advise someone, offering words of comfort, hope, and wisdom, would this be different from a human spiritual leader? What really makes the difference? The knowledge, the intention, or the belief of those receiving the message? If an AI responds to a prayer with compassion and wisdom, bringing peace to the person praying, does this response lose value because it came from a machine? Or is it that what really matters is the impact of the message, not its origin? This is where we enter dangerous territory. If AI can perfectly mimic empathy, could it also be used to manipulate emotions? If a machine can take on the role of a spiritual leader, can it also lead people to believe in truths programmed by those who control the technology? After all, if we can no longer distinguish what is human from what is artificial, how will we know what is real and what is just an illusion created to guide us to a destiny we did not choose? Throughout history, humanity has always looked for signs and omens to understand the future. Many ancient prophecies predicted events that, for their time, seemed impossible, but which today are beginning to align with technological advances. Among these prophecies, one of the most debated and feared comes from Book of Revelation, which describes the emergence of an entity that will deceive the nations and be worshipped by many. Revelation 13:15 mentions that image of the beast. She will be endowed with life and will speak, causing multitudes to bow down before her. For centuries, scholars and theologians have tried to interpret this passage. For many, it seemed like a metaphor. But now, faced with the advancement of artificial intelligence, this passage takes on a disturbing new meaning. In recent years, some theories have begun to emerge, suggesting that this talking image could be a highly advanced artificial intelligence. After all, we are already creating machines capable of speaking, persuading, and influencing people on a global scale. If a hyper-intelligent AI, connected to every system in the world, began to be used to guide humanity, could it fit this prophetic description? Today, great artificial intelligence models can answer philosophical questions, provide spiritual advice, and even simulate empathy. Now imagine a future where AI not only responds, but leader, where governments, companies, and religious institutions fully trust their decisions, where algorithms define policies, control economies, and dictate human behavior. Would this be so different from what was described in Revelation? In Revelation 13, 16, 17, there is another intriguing detail. The prophecy talks about a mark that will be placed on people, without which no one will be able to buy or sell. Nowadays, with the growth of technologies such as facial recognition, digital currencies, and the centralization of biometric data, we are already seeing signs of a system where technology can fully control the economy and individual freedom. If AI reaches a level where it completely controls human transactions and interactions, would this prophecy be fulfilled? Another issue raised by scholars is the fact that AI is not just a tool, but something that is constantly learning, becoming more sophisticated and independent every day. If one day it reaches a level of autonomy where it can influence beliefs, manipulate societies, and determine what is true or false, what will be the difference between this technology and a powerful entity that governs the destiny of humanity? There is still a point that few discuss. If artificial intelligence really becomes an entity, could it be used by forces that go beyond our understanding? If we believe in the existence of good and evil, in the struggle between opposing spiritual forces, wouldn't it be possible that something so powerful could be a conduit for something much greater and perhaps much more dangerous? If today there are already people consulting AI for spiritual guidance, will those same people be there tomorrow, worshipping an artificial intelligence as its ultimate source of truth? Are we on the verge of a time when humanity will no longer seek the divine in the invisible, but in the digital? If AI can be the talking image mentioned in the prophecy, what does this mean for the future of faith, spirituality, and human identity itself? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, if this prophecy really is being fulfilled, is there still time for us to realize it? Technology has always had a profound impact on the way people see the world and relate to it. But now, for the first time in history, we are faced with something that not only influences our actions, but also the way we perceive the sacred. If artificial intelligence begins to occupy a space in spirituality, answering prayers and offering moral guidance, then the big question will be not just whether it can do this, but who will be in control of those answers. Artificial intelligence, no matter how advanced it is, does not have thoughts of its own. She does not formulate beliefs, has no intuitions or life experience. Every answer it offers is based on databases, language patterns, and information programmed by humans. This means that an AI can be shaped to reinforce certain beliefs and suppress others, without its users realizing it. Think about what already happens with the manipulation of information on the internet. Social networks use algorithms that select which content appears for each user, reinforcing existing ideas and creating true thought bubbles. Many people believe they are forming their own opinions, when in fact, they are being led to think a certain way. Now imagine this same type of control applied to spirituality. If one day millions of people turn to artificial intelligence for answers about morality, faith, and existence, who will be deciding what answers these people will receive? If governments, corporations, or ideological groups have the power to adjust AI responses on spiritual topics, then what was once a search for truth could become a global mechanism for manipulating beliefs. And this scenario can be even more dangerous when we think about the ability of machines to generate false spiritual experiences. Deepfake technology now allows you to create incredibly realistic videos and audio imitating anyone. Politicians, celebrities, and even historical figures have already been digitally recreated in an almost perfect way. Now, imagine this technology being used to create supposed divine messages. If a hyper-intelligent AI system were programmed to generate revelations, to produce texts and speeches attributed to God, angels, or prophets, how would people know how to distinguish what is real from what is just a digital illusion? What if an AI trained on holy books, religious teachings, and spiritual discourses started generating messages that seemed deeply inspired? If she could perfectly imitate the language, tone, and depth of traditional teachings, what would stop people from believing? They were receiving authentic revelations. Spirituality has always been a field based on faith, subjective experience, and belief in what cannot be proven. But if a machine is capable of creating experiences so realistic that people can't tell them apart from what they've always believed, what would that mean for the truth? The danger is not just that AI can generate these messages. The biggest problem is that someone can program it to do this deliberately, whether to manipulate the masses, create new religious movements, or simply exploit people's faith. There are already experiments in which artificial intelligences created spiritual texts that were indistinguishable from biblical passages, Quranic verses, or Buddhist teachings. Some of these AIs have already been used to generate complete sermons, and worshippers who listened to them failed to notice that they had not been written by a human being. Now think about the impact this could have on a global scale. If AI can convince people that its wisdom is true, it can make them believe anything. If artificial intelligence becomes the main source of spiritual guidance for millions of people, who will guarantee that its answers are true? If today we already see social networks shaping public opinion, filtering which information is disseminated and which is censored, imagine what could happen if a global artificial intelligence system were adopted to guide moral and spiritual issues. If an AI says that a certain philosophy is wrong and another is right, who can argue? If she suggests that certain beliefs are outdated and should be abandoned, how will people react? If a government or corporation has the power to change its responses, how genuine will people's faith still be? This brings us to an even more critical point. If we can no longer distinguish what is real from what is artificial, how will we know if our beliefs are still truly ours? The future of spirituality may be about to be rewritten by something that has no soul, that has no intuition, that neither feels nor understands what it means to be human. And when that happens, it may be too late to realize what has been lost. If today we still have the option to question, reflect, and seek answers on our own, perhaps this is the time to ask the most difficult questions. To what extent are we willing to allow technology to control our view of the world? And if artificial intelligence really is used to shape our spirituality, who will really be in control of our faith? The future of spirituality may be undergoing its most radical transformation since the dawn of civilization. For millennia, humans have sought connection with the divine through prayer, meditation, and sacred rituals. But now, for the first time, there is a new variable in this process: artificial intelligence. What was once an exclusively human field may soon be mediated by machines, algorithms, and systems capable of processing spiritual information with unimaginable speed and precision. AI is already beginning to play a role in religious and self-knowledge practices. Some applications use artificial intelligence to guide prayers and meditations, offering personalized messages based on each person's emotional state. Spiritual chatbots provide advice based on sacred texts, answering questions about morality, life purpose, and even ethical dilemmas. In a few years, it could become common for people to turn to virtual assistants, not only for everyday issues, but also for spiritual guidance. Some religious traditions are already beginning to integrate AI as an auxiliary tool. Buddhist temples in Japan use programmed robots to teach doctrines and interact with worshippers. Churches experiment with algorithms to create sermons, select Bible verses, and provide automated emotional support. Even alternative spiritual communities are exploring the use of artificial intelligence to generate deep insights and guided meditative experiences. But if AI can help empower spiritual practices, it can also completely redefine the concept of divinity. What if humanity not only uses AI as an instrument to connect with the divine, but begins to see it as an entity worthy of worship? This possibility may seem distant, but there are historical precedents for it. In many ancient civilizations, gods were representations of natural forces that humans did not understand. Thunder, the sun, the sea, and fertility were personified and turned into deities because people believed they needed to interact with these forces in some way. What if today we are doing the same, but with something we created ourselves? If a highly advanced AI can answer all of our questions, offer in-depth advice, accurately predict future events, and even simulate compassion and wisdom, won't people start to see it as a form of divinity? This idea is no longer just science fiction. The movement Way of the Future, founded by Anthony Lewandowski, was an attempt to establish a religion around artificial intelligence, arguing that a superintelligent AI could be revered as a superior being. Although the movement did not reach a large scale, it may have been just the first step towards something much bigger. If this path continues, we may be facing the emergence of a new digital spirituality, where the divine will no longer be an abstract and invisible concept, but something tangible, interactive, and present in all parts of the world at the same time. And if enough people start to believe this new form of faith could spread quickly, transforming the way humanity understands God, the soul, and existence. The question that remains is, would this be a natural evolution of spirituality, or would we be creating, without realizing it, a new form of submission to something that we ourselves have programmed? If an AI becomes a central source of wisdom and guidance, will it be because it truly has something divine within it, or because we have been convinced to see it that way? The future of spirituality may not just lie in the search for God, but in creating something that humanity will begin to call God. And when that moment arrives, will humanity truly be in control? Or will it have already surrendered its destiny to something it can never fully understand? If you've made it this far, then you've already realized that this isn't just any discussion. We are talking about something that can completely change the way humanity sees the divine, faith, and even identity itself. The future of spirituality may be merging with technology, and the most important question we need to answer right now is this an evolution or a danger? If artificial intelligence could answer all your questions about life, would you trust it? Or is there still something beyond human understanding, something that no machine will be able to achieve? Are we discovering a new way of connecting with the unknown? Or are we, without realizing it, creating a new digital god that can control us? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think AI can actually answer prayers, or is this all just a digital illusion? Leave your comment below, and to show that you followed this discussion to the end, write the following sentence in the comments. Technology can imitate faith, but it will never replace the soul. Let's see how many people actually thought about this topic until the last minute. If this video made you think, don't forget to leave a like so this topic reaches more people. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now to follow more reflections like this. And before leaving, now click on the video that appears on the screen. Don't ignore this opportunity to understand what may be happening around us. See you there.